Welcome back to Freerider. We have a very nice ride lined up today and these two beautiful fat bobs to cruise around on. And this, coincidentally, is the first Harley-Davidson model I've ever ridden. So I'm very excited to get back on one. But I'm also very excited to introduce our guest today. She's a star of stage and screen, a producer, director, philanthropist, an avid Harley-Davidson enthusiast, Danielle Cormack. How are you?
What an amazing introduction.
That was okay, wasn't it?
That was far and beyond what I expected, and you've brought an entourage with you as well.
I have. I've got my friends.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I felt like I could have embellished it a little bit more.
No more embellishment. I'd be embarrassed.
Well, it's so good to have you today.
Oh, thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Have you ridden the Fat Bob before?
I have. Many moons ago, though. I haven't ridden a Fat Bob for ages. And I want to say, though, this has always been, because I'm a bit of an aestetist, I do like details of things. It's not just how the ride feels, it's how it looks as well. So, for me, this has always been my favourite colour. I love this. It's kind of rusty brown. So, put aside all the engine stuff and how it feels. Give me a good colour. I'm sold.
Well, this bike is my first love as well.
Okay.
It's the first bike I got on with Harley-Davidson when I started riding Harleys. So I'm pretty keen to, get going on one again, see if it performs the same as I remember it.
Okay.
Should we hit the road?
I think we should.
All right, let's do this.
Bye-bye.
Danielle, just to wind it back,
Yes.
how did you get started acting? Like, what was that road like and the beginning of your career like?
Yeah, I think it was really, I've always been into escapism of some form, and I, when I was really young, like when I was, 7 or 8, I would turn up at school with my mother's wardrobe, and I would make people dress up in her clothes. Ooh. And this has got more talk than what I expected. I would make people dress up in her clothes, and I would make them perform plays that I've written. And I've never felt like I wanted to be an actor. It was just that it was all part of my life forever. Like, it's just, I'm a performer, and which has been a gift and a curse.
So it's kind of like inherently in your DNA, I suppose.
It is, and as much as it's been fantastic for this line of work, it's certainly not. It's dashed any hopes that I have of being the shy person in the corner of the room. Like, I've always wanted to be the one who sits in silent reflection, and everyone's like, "Oh, who's that?" But I'm not. I'm always the kind of the fulcrum of noise and chaos. But I've always loved. I mean, human beings are eternally fascinating to me. In all our complexities, our flaws, our strengths and weaknesses and everything, and to be able to, find characters and take them off the page and put them on stage or on screen and make them characters of agency and wholeness is just, it's my great joy in life.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big contrast between stage and screen. Do you have a preference? Are you more theatre?
You know what? Now, I'll tell you what. Now, not post-COVID, but now that we're sort of swinging in this way of learning how to be on set, where things have changed dramatically in terms of how we, the intimacy has changed immensely, not only just in workplaces, but in life, but on the set, it's changed quite a lot. And I always really enjoyed the kind of freedom that you'd have and the sort of relationships that manifest on set with, the creative relationships are very free and they're very nuanced, and I think a lot has changed in terms of how we relate in the workplace now. It's quite staged. There's a lot of very staged things, and it's taken the electricity out of a set for me.
Yeah.
So I really liked, I think theatre, I'm kind of leaning more towards theatre at the moment, because you have that, there's a place where you can really throw ideas around, and you're not sort of worrying about too much about the technical side of filming, and I like that, you know. Like
And you can kind of connect with your audience, right? They're right in front of you. You know if
100%.
something's hitting, if something's working.
Yeah, you can look at that person in the front row and go, would you stop crinkling the chip packet?
I guess most notably, Australian series, Wentworth.
Yes.
Working with my good friend Pia Miranda.
I know. She got her eyes poked out.
How was that experience? Because that was a big role, and that's actually what you won your Logie for.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I'd been nominated for another two. Oh, my indicator keeps going off. I've been nominated for one before for Underbelly. I played the crime matriarch Kate Lee from the 1920s, and for the Underbelly series.
Yeah.
So I've been nominated for that, and I've been nominated for a Logie a few times before with other projects, but then I finally got it with Wentworth. It's been life-changing for me, not because of the caliber of the project, but actually more so the life after it. You know, I've had so many trips overseas and meeting fans and, you know, kind of, you know, hanging out with people whose lives have been profoundly changed by the show. And I get to meet all these extraordinary people whose stories, and that's what I live for, is stories.
Are you getting hungry? Should we stop for some food? I know there's a great spot up here, Glen Forest Gourmet, so let's stop and grab some brekkie, maybe some coffee.
Yay, let's do it.
Danielle, tell me how you got started with motorcycles.
I used to ride farm bikes. I used to spend a lot of time on farms, and then, but riding legally.
Yes.
It was. I started riding a lot when I was working on the tow Wentworth that I was working on, and I think it was just to have something to do on the weekend or after work where I wasn't still. You know, my mind wasn't filled with all of the content from the job because it was such an intense role. So I needed something else to concentrate on. So I started then, and I became part of a motorcycle garage there that I could go there and be part of a community that had nothing to do with my acting work. I love putting things together and taking things apart. You know, I think that's kind of like what I do with my work, you know, taking people apart and putting them back together again. But I also love doing it. I'm a really crafty person. So, you know, just looking at how bikes work and taking them apart, putting them back together, and I just have kind of continued, you know, forming a relationship with Harley, of course. They've been amazing, and then just meeting people, riding with big groups of women, which has been fantastic.
Well, it's a fantastic part of motorcycling are the communities, and I think as you're starting to ride and learning techniques and meeting people, having community around you or being part of a community kind of pushes your riding forward, and you learn stuff from other people, you make great relationships, and for me that's something I love about motorcycles, is that sense of community.
Yeah, and you know, for me too, I'd love to see more female riders on the road. I feel like there's been, you know, that they've traditionally been on the back of bikes, you know, rather than riding their own course, and I love the idea now that there are more females riding. You know, I've ridden with some fantastic large groups of women. We did a run where you pass a baton around the world. They did this round the world relay, and so I got to run the leg from Auckland halfway down the North Island, and then you pass the baton to the next group of women. And I was riding with, I don't know, 300 women. It was so great. It was so much fun. But that thing too of what has traditionally been a sort of a male pastime, and that's not the case anymore. It's kind of like surfing, you know, like there are so many more females out there surfing, and I like the idea. Like a lot of women will say, "Oh my God, you're riding," and it gives them, you know, excuse the pun, but license to, you know, they feel like
it's representation, right?
Yeah,
and
of course.
We know how important representation is. I think a big part of Harley-Davidson, the Harley-Davidson community is being inclusive and representing all kinds of riders, creed, race, religion. You can be whoever you want to be and still ride a Harley.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, for me, being, having the privilege of being able to attend some of their rallies, and one of my favourite moments was when I got asked to lead out. There must have been 1,500 riders on the Thunder Roll down in Queenstown, and just through all of that valley through to Cadrona, and I was like,
it's so powerful.
this is amazing. Just looking back and seeing this. I can be incredibly conservative, but I'm also a complete motorhead as well. So it's just like this appeals to every part of my motorhead sensibilities.
As I saw on the road today, you ride very well.
Oh, thank you.
What did you think of the Fat Bob?
Oh, I loved it. I really, it's good to have a bike that's incredibly robust that you can really throw around. Like, it took me a while just to get in. Once I was getting into it and getting on those corners, it was really great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, one of the coolest things about being a Harley-Davidson ambassador is you get to actually ride all the different bikes.
Yeah.
Have you got one that's been standing out, one that's your favourite?
Oh, it's difficult because I put that into two categories. There are ones that are like very classic that are not being produced anymore. That I got to ride the little 72, which I loved.
Yeah.
But recently the Sportster S has been pretty amazing.
No. I like the Sportster S too. We just did a piece on it. They move very, very well, those Sportster S's.
Yeah, and I think they're.
Well, that's a note for HQ. Sportster S over here.
Every ride is, depending on where you're riding and how you're riding. There's a bike that suits all of that. I've got bikes that I prefer to have if I'm going on a long ride.
Yeah.
You've got any of the glides are beautiful.
Well, that's it. Well, I'm on a Road Glide Special now. I feel like I would never have ridden the Road Glide Special until, it was presented to me at the dealership. They were like, you would love this bike. And I was like, would I? And now it's like the only thing I want to be on.
Not taking it back.
Like, get out the way.
Yeah, exactly. But then, like sometimes if I'm just whipping around town, Livewire is pretty sexy for that.
Yeah,
it's depending on where you're riding. And like, I talked before about riding in the States. I think I was just on a little, a little sporty, and it was just the roads that I needed something more that had more suspension and it was more comfortable on my bum. But those little bikes are perfect for around the city, but a long ride. And I love that about Harley is that you've got lots of choice.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Come on, United we ride.
Yeah.
Reach out to your fellow sisters and say, hey, can we go for a ride? That's what I do. I just go, hey, do you feel like going for a little ride? It might be just, let's just go over there to the cafe over there. Okay, great.
Well, on that note, should we finish these off and jump back on the bikes?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Safe riding.
Now, I mentioned philanthropy in the intro, and I'd love to talk to you about that because I know you're doing some really great stuff with some of the NGOs that you're working for and the not-for-profits. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work there?
I've been an ambassador for Child Fund New Zealand and Australia for quite a number of years now, maybe over 10 years. I've travelled with them to different territories where they work, so East Africa, Vietnam, Cambodia. I'm also at the moment doing a drive for Ukraine, for the refugees that are mostly ending up now in Moldova, and most of the charities I work with are very child-centric. So it's about protection of children primarily, and then their families. But I also am working locally with an organisation called Shine for Kids that are helping kids whose parents or caregivers have been incarcerated with mentorship programs, supporting them while they go for their visits, because of course at the moment they haven't been able to visit because of COVID, and just I guess trying to also break the cycle of intergenerational offending, which can happen, and especially more so in the Indigenous communities, sadly. So I've been doing a lot of work with that, which has been really great.
Was that a cause you felt like you got a bit connected to through the roles that you'd been playing, or was that just you just kind of felt like you had a heart for that style of work?
I think that there was a logical relationship through Wentworth.
Yeah.
But also the organisation that I'm involved with in New Zealand, Heartspeak, worldwide. We
Yeah, I was
work
going to
with
ask you about Heartspeak.
Yeah, we work with a lot of at-risk youth that are that have sadly, been part of the criminal justice system at a very young age, and trying to, once again, it's, offer them different mentorship programs and different choices and just different routes of education if they're not able to to be involved with what would be a conventional education system, how it's set up, going from school to 9 to 3 because they don't have the support from their family, or there's other mitigating circumstances that's hindering their development, then we're offering them more creative solutions. And to me, when I was at school, I was really naughty. I was super naughty.
Oh, really?
Yes, but and I was waving flags, and and thankfully there were a couple of people in my life that went, hold on a second, she's not a bad person, she's just struggling in certain areas. And it was through those people that came to me with creative solutions that I was able then to find, I guess, my own self and stop acting out so badly.
Yeah. Just because she made a mess doesn't mean she is a mess.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's important to, offer, especially, people, adolescents who are still in development. The world is confusing enough, without other things that might be, discrediting your experience.
Let's talk a little bit about your production company.
Ah, yes.
411 Productions. I like the name very much.
Do you know what 411 is?
It's the 411. It's the hats. It's what's going on. It's what's going on.
People don't know that. So 411 came about. I guess for me it was like, you know what? I mean, there's some brilliant practitioners out there. God, there's some great stories being told on our screens and and in our theatres. But there was a deficit in the area of for me, I think, very complex female characters on screen, female with agency, and from our part of the world as well. And underrepresented faces on screen. And I got together with Nicole De Silva, who was a very a valued colleague of mine on Wentworth. And so I went to her and said, look, this is my idea about starting a production company so we can actually do our own stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's how that came about. So we've got some really good things in development at the moment.
Well, the writing here is pretty nice, eh?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. This is what I came here for.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh no, I mean,
landscape.
obviously came here to meet you too. But,
Oh, well, fine.
more importantly, the writing.
Appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for today. It's been awesome.
It was.